Welcome back to the podcast for the Halter Horse world. I'm talking with people, or a person today behind the scenes, who's an assistant or on her team, also known as the lieutenant. She's the right hand to a top halter trainer. So the assistants in our industry are folks who start before sunrise, they finish long after the last class, and keep the entire operation moving with precision and care, knowing every detail about the horses, every wrinkle in the schedule, and every preference of clients and trainers. They're the first ones to the barn and the last ones to leave, and often the glue that holds a winning program together at the biggest shows of the year. So in this episode, we're going to hear what it's really like to work 12 to 15-hour days at major events, how she's balancing horse care, client service, and trainer support. Welcome, Natasha. We appreciate you being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
You bet. Absolutely. So why don't you start by just introducing yourself and tell us what your role is typically at a horse show?
Okay. So my name is Natasha Bothwell. Pretty much everybody on the circuit knows me as Tosh. I work for Andy Staton when I'm at the horse shows. I usually do we do the fall shows, like I do Iowa with him. I usually do the Congress and I do the World Show with him. As far as what I do, I'm literally that person, like you just said. I'm that person that's just that extra. Andy gets the horses there. He gets the horses ready. I mean, like I said, he's the guru. He is the person that makes this happen. And I'm just that little bit of like the icing on the cake. So I just kind of help things kind of run smoothly. I coordinate stuff between, the horses and the show pen and the customers and the front office. And I'm that person that, I'll be there in the mornings, first thing, holding the horses when we got the banding lady there, or making sure, vet care is good, or they're getting all their spa treatments, and, everything just running as smoothly as it physically can. Especially at those really big horse shows that are
Mm-hmm.
super tense. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody poured their heart and soul into them. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I do. So as best as
Yeah.
I can.
Absolutely. That's a lot. So how did you get started in the halter horse industry?
I've had horses ever since I was little. And then when I got to a certain age where I thought I wanted to kind of start showing, I really don't have very much riding talent. My sister was born riding a horse, and I was born pretty much leading them. And I tell you, there's just something about a halter horse that literally just takes
Mm,
my breath away. And
yeah.
and I absolutely love it. And once I got my first quote unquote official halter horse that was actually bred for halter and could do the job, I was hooked. And then I've known Andy for many, many years now. And I mean, he's like a brother to me. And I truly love working with him. I love working with our customers that we have. And I get to live a dream,
Mm,
times out of the year, and enjoy every moment of it. So that's kind of, and I don't know that it's anything that I'll ever get out of. So
mm.
I'll probably be in it for forever, whether I'm doing this
Good.
or whatever. But yeah, halter horses they're totally what I love. So
Yeah. I get that. So
yeah.
then, it sounds like you have always been into the halter, but how did you know, or how did it happen that you found your niche in the behind the scenes uh, when you think about the whole process of going to a big show?
Yep. Like I said, I enjoy showing. I did that for many years. And even with Andy, I've been really, really fortunate to be able to show some really pretty cool horses. And I've been very blessed to be able to even win some world and reserve world titles with him. So that's been an amazing blessing. But I just really enjoy like that kind of little bit of like intimacy. I love being that first person that gets to walk out in the arena after it's freshly drugged,
Mm,
like 5 in the morning, and take that baby out there and get it set and just enjoy the time, just spend time
mm,
with it. I love being part of that, that that preparing them to get them to the pen so that the customer can go and hopefully win with them. I love that journey. And don't get me wrong, I
mm.
love I love winning. I love doing that. It was fun when I'm in the pen, but there's something extra for me that I just truly love. And I get to be around some of the best people and some of the most amazing horses in the industry, and not all the time that I can afford them. So it's like the best of the both worlds for me. So,
Yeah, it
you
sounds
know,
like it.
yeah, so it's truly it's a lot of fun for me. So
Awesome. So, just in transitioning to the prep and the planning that you're a part of, what does your typical day look like when you're at a big horse show?
When we get there, sometimes if it's a show that I can drive to, because like I said, Andy and I'm not at the barn with him all year long.
Mhm.
So like for Iowa and the Congress, especially, like I might go out, a couple hours before, 6, 8 hours, 10 hours before, get there in the morning, make sure stalls are set, and that sort of stuff. So that way, when he gets there, when we get everything unloaded, get horses tucked in. And usually, like at a big show, the first day or so after we get there, it's me and him just kind of working through the motions. We get there in the morning, horses are fed. We start pulling them out one at a time, kind of brushing them over, prepping them to get worked. He'll go work them. I'll pick at stalls if I don't have somebody extra to do that. And then we just kind of work our way through it. And then, when we get closer to the days that we're going to start showing, is when we kind of gear down on like which ones we need to do specific things for, or like if there's extras that we need to do. And that's just kind of how we roll. Once the customers start getting there, we definitely get the babies in the pen, definitely get the horses in the pen, make sure they get to be in the pen so that they're comfortable. And then just making sure everything, the horses are healthy, stalls still look good, they're eating good, they're, everything just running as smoothly as it can.
Mhm.
And we've been doing this, like I said, together for many years. And it's usually him and I. We usually have a couple other people. Every once in a while, we'll bring in. Last couple of years, we brought in some extra people just for extra help, and they're super
Mhm.
great. I've had Halter help me. Jake Wicker comes in and helps us sometimes too. Like at Iowa, he'll come and help us. Just because we have so many, we've taken upwards of 10 to 15, to Iowa for us, and for him and me, and then his dad helping. So we'll pull in a few extra people, but that's kind of our basis. We've kind of got a good little routine down, and we kind of read each other, so we kind of know where we're at and what we're doing. And I've been with him long enough to know like what our plan is and what our week's going to look like. And so
Mm.
that's what
Mhm.
makes it nice being that intimate and working that closely with him. So
Mhm.
I think that's what makes us work super good together.
Mhm.
Um, Mostly for the most part, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just thinking for the folks who don't maybe understand, at a big show, you are just showing up to assist for the big show, and then you go back home, right? You don't live
Yep.
in the same state.
I
You
don't
don't
live in the same
go to the
state.
barn every day. This is
Nope.
something that is happening. Um, is this common
It's
for?
not.
Okay.
I think maybe sometimes at these bigger shows, like you'll see people, like my sister used to ride, and so I know a lot of the people on the riding side of it as well. And you'll
Mhm.
see like even now, they'll post on Facebook, hey, looking for day help at the Congress or
Mm.
looking for day help at the World Show. I think
Uh-huh.
that sort of thing is kind of common, but
Uh-huh.
I think for someone like me that like I said, I'm very blessed that our customers and Andy is as comfortable with me, and I've gotten to know them over the years to where I can just come in off the streets. These babies that I'm
Mhm.
gonna come into when I get there this next week at Iowa, I've seen them in photos. Andy and I, we've chit chatted over them in photos. I've seen them, that way, but I've not laid a hand on them.
Mm.
But when I get there, now there's a couple of times that he's called me down, and I've gone down like in the middle of summer in August to help him get, some of the more ranker ones, or if he's just needs a little extra hand helping him do that. But for the most part, yeah, I kind of show up. I think what we have is a lot different than what the norm is, especially I feel
Yeah.
like close and as much trust as he and also the customers have with me. Um,
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
there's been a couple of times like at the Congress, even a few years where we've had some babies and some horses at home that he's got that we don't necessarily bring to the Congress deal. That once we get through the open part of the week, he might venture back home, and me and his dad will take over for the rest of the week. And get those last couple of amateurs in the pen that they need to get shown.
Mhm.
That takes a lot. And
Yeah.
I think it I don't know that this would work out for everybody. It works really good for us.
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of how we do it. And I, like I said, I love doing it, and I'll help him out as much as I can from here on out. And I think it's just kind of something that we just kind of expect. When I first started, he would call me and be like, "Hey, are we good for Iowa? Where are we at for the Ohio deal? What about World Show? You coming?" And I'd be like, "Yes, I got this off. I got this off. I've got things moved around." Now it's just, we're going to get there at this time. When you plan on getting there, so it's just kind of a thing that's,
Mhm.
and I will do it all the time. God forbid if something happened and I couldn't, obviously I'll have to let him know, but I mean, it's kind of a given
Yeah.
with me. So
Yeah.
like, I said,
Yeah.
I don't know that that would work with everybody, but it works
Sure.
good for us. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything that you're doing at home to prepare for the show other than your own kind of normal your own life that's happening
I mean,
preparation?
like, not really, when I get ready to leave that 1 week or whatever, a couple weeks that I'm gone, my husband's self-sufficient. He can do what he needs to get done around here. We have retired show horses here, so I
Okay.
don't have anything that I've got that we're showing. I don't have anything that needs to be worked on a daily basis.
Mhm.
They live out in the pasture and they're fat and sassy, and that's what they like to do. So, and so if I do have anything that I show or anything that's like that, it's usually down there with him.
Mhm.
So as far as me, no, I'm the person that I can live in the suitcase for the last half of the year. Matter of fact, honestly, my suitcase that had a lot of stuff hanging in it, and I feel like I still have show or jeans and stuff hanging in the horse trailer from the World Show because I'll take a bunch of stuff with me and be like, I'll pick
Yeah.
this up next fall, or if I come down and then I get down there and I forget to grab it. So like when I get to Iowa, I've probably got a week's worth of clothes that I need to get out of the trailer, or jeans that have, ready for me to wear that, I never even
Yeah.
wore last year at the World Show or something like that. So, and he just, it's just kind of the way it works for us. He's like, "Hey, you still got your suitcase here?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'll pick it up when I get down there again, or I'll see you in a week. We're going to do the horse show anyways. It's fine. Just leave it." So,
I
so
love
yeah,
it.
at my house, there's not a whole lot other than just kind of me making sure I get stuff tucked away here and can head that
Yeah.
direction,
Yeah.
give my 100% to them as much as I can. So,
Yeah. So then are there any tricks or tools that you use to stay organized when you've got multiple horses, clients, and the show schedule that's continuously rolling?
yep. You know what? I'm a big person, the schedules.
Mm.
I don't even have to have a big schedule. It's just I can even have my own little hand printed schedule.
Yep.
Um, and I get there and I get it up on our wall in our cleanup stall or in our courtesy stall. And I've got on there wrote, who's showing what day and which horse and which class. And for Andy and I, like I said, we get there, start prepping things, and I kind of think probably everybody probably does this. You get 72, 48, 24 hours out, and you're thinking which horses are showing when. So
Mhm.
make sure you get the right ones in the pen. Everybody gets extra time. We're all good on whatever meds or vet stuff needs to be done, or like I
Mhm.
said, whether they need saltwater treatments or they need cryo or laser or whatever. We'll make sure all that's
Mhm.
squared away. So for me, it's that little schedule. I've got it all wrote down. And then the other little thing, which, it's just sounds very simple, but just even like keeping because like for me, I may not know every horse when I first get there. It just keeping that name on that stall, something real simple, and that way I can go through and
Mhm.
we don't have a bunch of customers. We may have a bunch of horses, but they're probably only owned by one or two customers, or maybe three at the most. So we just don't have a really big customer base. So that makes it a little easier. I know that so and so belongs to so and so, and this is the days that we're showing, or there's specific things that they like,
Mhm.
or when we're prepping, there's certain ways that a couple of the customers like to have things done, and we just try to make sure we've got it
Mhm.
all situated for everyone, their basic needs and how they like things to be done. So definitely the
Mhm.
schedule is big for me and him. So I think it just keeps
Yeah.
us glance at it, be like, yep, we're on track. Yep, this is what we're doing, and it keeps us, in line. So
Yeah.
that's definitely probably my biggest thing when we're on the road. So it's just kind of having me something for a basis to where I know where I'm at and where we're at each day.
Mhm. You mentioned something that I'm intrigued by. You had two different names for stalls, a cleanup stall and a courtesy stall. Tell me about the
Yep.
difference.
So our cleanup stall will be like the stall that I've got all my, like in our cleanup stall, I'll have my little groom cart. The vacuum will
Mhm.
be in there, different lines, whether it's my cords, it's my, the
Mm.
chain, or it's just regular lead ropes, different
Mhm.
halters, just kind of not necessarily show halters, but just different halters. And
Mhm.
that's like the way that we'll get the horse groomed up every day, whether it's, we're brushing it just to take it up front and work it, or we're prepping one to actually get to the pen. So that's the spot that's for our horses.
Mhm.
Our curtain stall is kind of at Iowa, it's a little harder because we're in the barn where we can't really move the walls around. We're in the barn that's attached to the arena. So we have an area that's set up with like a fridge and the table, and I've got the hangers and like a little
Uh-huh.
carpet area kind of hung up. And that way, the customers, our customers, for the most part, they kind of come ready and dressed. But if they
Mhm.
need to change, or if we're fortunate enough and blessed enough to get something that wins that morning, and then that afternoon we got to get into the grain and reserve, then they can, have a spot to change and hang up their clothes and keep stuff clean. And we can tuck makeup away and purses away, and we have food and snacks and drinks in there. And then sometimes, depending on the lack thereof or how many stalls we have, if we've got extra, like we'll have our clean stuff, like like our coolers. Show halters will go in that section. That way it's like clean stuff that's not necessarily on a horse when they're dirty or they've been sweaty or anything like that.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then we may still have an area for, shavings and feed. That'll probably be in a separate area. So if we're fortunate and we can get enough room, that's usually how we do it. And it just makes things a little more comfortable for everybody. Especially when you're there for more than a couple of days. When you're there for a week,
Yeah.
it's just nice to have a little extra spots to put stuff in and to be able to do everything with the horses like you need to. So,
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for explaining that. Um, so tell us, what's something that most people don't realize, that's happening behind the scenes that you're dealing with, addressing? Something that people don't know necessarily.
it's not, yeah, it's totally not all just brushing the horses and getting them to the show pen and
Mhm.
showing them. It's,
Mhm.
with, especially with us, like I can go through and, we get there, we get stalls cleaned. And then we might be like, what, so and so and this horse, we've been here for a few days. Let's go on and let's order 20 more bags of shavings and let's refluff stalls. Or, let's add some more shavings. The other things are, like I call it kind of like the spa treatment stuff where they either get
Yeah.
like their cryo, they get their salt water, they get their acupuncture, correlate and all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, making sure our people are all lined up. And then, if we've got a horse that I need to tie a tail in, that's something I do. But if it's something, like if we're doing a yearling, a lot of times we'll do glue ins, and a lot of people do, so we'll make sure we've got that all lined up. And if we've got a horse that we're doing whatever, say we've got something that needs a little extra vet care or something, just making sure that we're doing that, in the process of getting 7, 8, 10, 12, whatever. Like I said, I think the most we've probably taken to Iowa definitely was probably about 15. Besides getting everybody worked every day and everybody in the pen and, making sure everybody's eating and everybody's healthy,
Mhm.
your odds and ends, like this horse might need to, have its one back leg put in this, in an ice bucket or something, or maybe needs a
Mhm.
something. So it's just all
Mhm.
that extra little care. And then one of the things that I'll do too is, like some of the managing, helping with him, like the office stuff, making sure we got numbers, making sure if it's not Andy leading, sometimes we might have somebody else doing like a catch lead, or somebody might be leading
Mhm.
something. There might be an exhibitor change, so just making sure that that's taken care of, and making sure all those, T's are crossed and the I's are dotted there. Um,
Yeah.
and then in simple stuff like keeping the refrigerator full and making sure there's plenty of water and the coolers have got stuff. And, it's just
Yeah.
like simple stuff like that. That's the extra little, I catch myself cleaning all the time.
Mm.
When I'm
Yeah.
in the like the little courtesy stall, I'm like cleaning and wiping stuff down and making sure there's, I don't know, simple stuff like napkins and,
Yeah.
just the comforts of
Yeah.
home for everybody. And I think it's
Yeah.
that stuff, like making sure there's a mirror in the courtesy booth, in the cleanup
Mhm.
stall for you to, put makeup on or whatever. So it's just
Yep.
those little behind the scene things that I don't think people, think about, all the extras
Mhm.
that go into not just the horse and getting them in the pen. So, and
Yeah.
getting pretty horses all day and brush on them all day long. So, um, and then at the end of the day, I don't know, I'm whining and dining for a lack of a better term, to make sure that, you're doing all your PR stuff. You get your customers and we're everybody's comfortable and everybody's happy, and that they're comfortable with their horses and they're happy with the way the horses are. So it's just all that extra stuff. So,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a lot of like the other stuff that I don't think, and I think that's the part that can be a little bit exhausting if I could,
Mm. Sure.
and it's not the horses, it's not, getting them done every day. It's all the extras that that can wear you down a little bit. So it's good to
Mhm.
be able have somebody, that you're strong and you work well with to be able to bounce things off of and
Hmm.
to have that shared stress if you can. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, was there ever a time where something felt like it was about to fall apart? Wheels are about to come off of the team.
uh
Has that ever happened? And what did you do to get the wheels back on?
yeah, we years ago, yeah, I probably was the one that almost made the wheels fall off. And then tried to put them back on.
Uh-huh. Sure.
And so
Multi-talented you are.
oh, yeah, I'm telling you, we had a baby horse for a customer that it had a little bit of issues with some front legs, and so we were trying to maintain and get things just right and just perfect for that day that they showed, and we were doing all sorts of stuff, wrapping and lasering and just just all sorts of salves and treatments and yada yada, and the night before we went to show, we wrapped him, which is what we'd been doing, and I think I got a little overzealous and wrapped a little much, and got there the next morning and got our little routine down to get him prepped to get him in the pen, and this was like the baby that we were going to win with. Like, this is the one that they're like, we're winning with this baby, it's not even a
Uh-huh.
question, this one has to
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
um and we pull, I had me and Lance, God love you Lance, I miss you. um he was there at the time, and we were pulling a leg wrap off, and that just leg just starts puffing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've messed. Oh my, I've just completely ruined this. I'm like, and my husband was with us at this particular horse show, and he was doing something, and I'm standing there looking, and Lance is in the stall, and I'm looking at this baby thinking, oh, I've ruined this. I don't even know what we're gonna do. We show in like 20 minutes. Like, I don't even know what we're doing. And my poor husband comes up and he says something, and I'm like, babe, I don't just go talk to somebody else about that right
Yeah.
now.
Not now.
Like, I gotta stop and think what I'm doing. And I don't know. But by the grace of God, pulled it out of my hind end, and I'm like, okay, I got an idea. I got an idea. And kind of slathered some stuff on it, kind of gently wrapped it back up. And I'm like, with fingers crossed and a like in a prayer, maybe we can get this done. And I mean, the classes at Iowa, that was one of those first couple of years that I was with them. And I mean, those classes, they still, even to this day, they got 35, babies in them, so it's a big
Hmm.
class, and they're standing there forever. And he goes out in that pen, and I'm just like, please just don't look like they're going to fall off your front legs. Just please just make them somewhat stay contained. And as they got in there and they were placed in the class, they pull everybody out, and we're going through, and I'm back with Andy. We're already back at the stalls prepping the next 3 babies for the next couple of classes, so we kind of think we know where we're at, or at least he did, because I stayed in the back, pretty much biting my fingernails down to the quick. And by the grace of God, that thing walked out of there winning the class. I mean, it just, yeah, we got so lucky and so blessed. But I was like this close from, yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna leave now, because
Oh
I've
my
for
word.
this horse. And needless to say, that horse went on to win several world titles after that, so all was good. But it
Oh
was,
my gosh.
Andy still gives me heck about that one to this day. Yeah, he gives me heck about it. He's like, well, let's talk about that. I'm like, yeah, I know. So, but
But it was
it
redeemed.
was by, oh my goodness, I was literally in tears when they announced the second place horse, and I knew that just left us standing there, and I was like, oh, thank God, I can keep my job for another
Oh,
day at least.
right.
So,
Right. Didn't get fired.
yeah, yep. Like, that's a long 6 hours home after only being there 3 days.
Right?
So, but yeah,
Oh
no,
my gosh.
we, like I said, and then it's in the back of my brain every time I do something with one that gets something similar, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that this year. We're not doing that. We're not freaking ourselves
Mm.
out. So, but yeah, I don't know, like I said, he razzes me about that one still. So, and every once in a while, I think so does the owner. Yeah, yeah, or the person that owned him at the time. Yeah, he gives me heck about it
Yeah.
all the time. So, which is, I deserve that. So
But it was redeemed.
it
You
was
won.
redeemed. We got very fortunate. Yeah. So,
So, what's maybe the most physically or mentally demanding part of the job?
um, I say this with a lot of love, a lot of
Okay.
love. I think at first it's gotten better now that I've really gotten to know them and everybody. Um, at first for me was the customers. And I say that with
Sure.
love because I wanted to do the best that I could and please
Yeah.
them, because
Hmm.
you know anybody that knows Andy knows who his customers are, and they're probably one of the top people in our industry. Josh is very, 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 very successful. And that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of that's a lot of anxiety for somebody that, is not really, when I first started getting to know them and, just the caliber of horses and where you're at from, where I was at to where they were at. I mean, it's on a different playing field. And, so for me, that was it, just when I first started. But now I give them all heck, it's all good. We get along really super well. And I love them to death for the fact that they trust me and
Yeah.
allow me to be part of that journey with them. I mean, I can't say the customers that we've got in our barn are just the best horse show family that I could ever ask for. Like they are literally my family. And I think that for
Mm.
me was definitely at first. Now I don't, I think it's just, I think now that I've kind of gotten through that part, I think, and again, I say this not trying to sound, I don't want it to sound like conceited or something, but,
Mhm.
and I don't want it to sound the way that I'm nervous it might sound. Andy's been very, very lucky to be very, very successful at what he does. We've been very
Mhm.
successful the last several years.
Mhm.
Had the reserve leading exhibitor award the last couple of years at the World Show. Last year was very fortunate that his customers got the leading exhibitor award. I mean, we took,
Mhm.
I don't know, 7 horses off the top of my brain, and we walked home with 7 Gold Globes last year. I mean,
Mm.
um,
Awesome.
I think maintaining that, everybody always says you can go and you can win something once and, it's easy to do, but it's that maintaining. And I think that's just a little extra added stress.
Mhm.
And so that's just something that we try to balance. I see it in him when we get a year that maybe we don't have quite as good a string as what we did the year prior.
Sure.
Um, Last year we knocked it out of the park, so, and I don't want to jinx or anything, but there'll be a year that we're not quite knocking it out of the park like that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think it's that if I could say anything, it's just maintaining that really high level of success and making
Mhm.
sure that, because when you've got customers that, they're in it to win it. I mean, and a lot of
Mhm.
the people that we show with, they're all in it, to win. And I don't mean that in like a bad way to where they're not,
Mhm.
considerate, but you don't get into that level without, I mean, you don't pull horses out when you go to the world show and not expect to try to win. I mean, that's
Right.
what
Right.
you want.
That's why you're there.
And when you're there and you're able to do it, a lot, I think it's maintaining that can be stressful. So, and I've seen it where we've had years, where we've had, horses where we're like, yep, this is going to get out there, it's going to win. And you've got a lot of pressure on that particular horse or that particular baby, and then they just fold. The baby, they can't get there. And and it's disheartening for the customer. It's disheartening for Andy. We've gone back to the stalls and sat there in like a moment of silence after something didn't quite go right. And we're like, okay, well, let's start from the drawing board and we're gonna, what, we got
Yeah.
4 days to fix this. Let's fix it, and we'll come out swinging at the end of the week. So let's
Yeah.
pick ourselves up and keep going. So I think
Yeah.
that would probably be more like kind of what it is here, in the last several years, just because. Like I said, he's been so blessed. He's been so successful, just to try to maintain that, for anybody that's at the top like that. There's several
Mm.
trainers that are out there in our industry that are, they're very lucky and they're very fortunate. They got really good customers and very good horses. So for them to get out there and constantly be winning and winning and winning, it adds a level of stress to things,
Sure.
and I
Sure.
think people that don't get to do that or maybe aren't quite as fortunate where they can go and they can be winning every year
Mhm.
like that. I
Mhm.
think they winning is just easy and
Mm.
it's a lot. It's stressful,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great when you do and you get to celebrate and that's awesome, but
Mhm.
then you've got that level of, hey, I'm here. Next year we got to be here again and then some.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think that's probably about the most stressful part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in thinking about your long days, what kinds of things do you do to keep your energy level where it needs to be able
Uh,
to sustain the day?
Coffee. um, I joke with Andy. I'm like, well, if you're not going to pay me, I joke with him all the time. Well, if you're too broke to pay me, you can just, buy me white mochas or like, I'm like a white chocolate mocha, an iced white mocha kind of fanatic. And
Mm.
for 1 year for I don't know, was it 1 year for the red bud or something like that? The 1 year he called me up and he's like, can you come out and do this? I'm like, yeah, okay, I suppose. You just get me someplace to put my head, lay my head, and make sure I got some coffee, and we'll call it good. But I mean, you don't get a lot of
Yeah.
sleep. Especially if you got horses, that you're worried about, or the weather's
Mhm.
weird and you got a horse, an HYPP
Yep.
horse acting goofy, or or you got to meet your banding lady at 3 in the morning to get stuff done, and you were in the
Yep.
barn till 11, 12 at night. So yeah, I feel like coffee and I call them little juicy mixes, but they're really like those little Crystal Light mixy things. And just, at the end of the day, if you can take just a few minutes just to sit
Mhm.
and get your feet up,
Mhm.
and it's cute because sometimes Andy will be like, we'll be somewhere and we've been there, 4, 5, 6 days in, and I'll get kind of quiet. And he's like, "What's wrong? Are you feeling okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm just tired. I'm just tired." I could totally go to the house or the hotel or the camper, whatever we decided that we're staying in for that particular show, and could totally go to sleep. And he'd be like, "Are we going to get dinner?" I'm like, "Or we could just DoorDash food and eat it at the house." So I
Yeah.
feel like that's like our thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
just trying to get your sleep when you can, and then when I don't, I literally live on coffee. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
my go-to. But and everybody that knows me kind of knows that. Like even Heather, like last year when she was working with us, we would leave the hotel in the morning and me and Andy'd head to the barn, and she'd be like, "Okay, I'll go get coffee." I'm like, "Okay, you hit the coffee shop. We'll go to the barn. I'll meet you there." And that's what we would do. So like one morning I'd pay for coffee, one morning she would, one morning Andy would, and that's just kind of what we would do. So
Yeah. That's a good
I'm
team.
not a I'm not a drinking person. I'm not a smoking person. I'm a iced white mocha. That's my addiction. So yeah, that's kind of what gets me through
Yeah.
as best. I'll
Yeah.
sleep when I get home. So
That's right.
yep.
So,
So
is there anything that you do? You've talked about the mental stress of winning and just staying at that level. Is there anything that you do to help Andy or anybody else on the team stay focused um, and on task or on schedule, or is that something that's just naturally happening?
I think, with like me and him, I think just because I think as we just kind of work so kind of well together. And like I said, we've
Mhm.
got kind of a
Mhm.
smaller customer base. And they're just really good friends. I think it's something, they'll razz each other and they'll get after each other. And I feel like that's something you just kind of got to do to just kind of de-escalate when you're really super
Yep.
stressed out. And then they'll come back and they'll regroup, and it's just
Mm.
kind of what we do. But it's I feel like for us, yeah, I think, just kind of keeping things on task as best as we can. And when we're in
Mm.
that spot where we're kind of
Sure.
stressed, we're trying to stick to some sort of a routine. Even if we're having like a bad go or a bad day, or, we're just things aren't going quite as well as what we wanted them to be. You look at it and you kind of figure out where you got to go from there, and you make a game plan, and you kind of start, the next morning fresh as you can. Some of those nights,
Mhm.
we might be like, okay, we've pushed it really hard the last 4 or 5 days. We don't have anything to show tomorrow, or we do show, but we don't show until late, which rarely
Mm.
happens. But, we'll be like, okay, let's tuck horses in, let's feed, let's go get an early dinner, and let's just kind of regroup, come back with fresh eyes tomorrow.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's kind of how we do it. And with our customers, they're used to, I mean, they're used to being, like I said, super successful. And even when they've not been, if they've got a horse that's a really good horse, but there's something out there that, just was a little better, and just for whatever day ours just wasn't 100% today, their hocks were off, or I don't know, they looked tired, or they just didn't seem right. And for the most part they're pretty good about being like, you know what, yep, this is what it was. I mean, we've had our moments where, they thought it should have been a win for them, but it wasn't.
Mhm.
And a little slight meltdown, and he knows what I'm talking about. And I'm not, and between him and Andy, or Andy, it's cute, and they'll have a moment, and then they'll go about their day, and we're good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know how it is for other barns. I don't know.
Sure.
They've got, a bigger customer base and a lot more customers, where they've got, you know, multiple horses that are owned by multiple people versus, us having multiple horses just with a couple people.
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel like it's just super intimate in our little barn because it's
Mhm.
like I've been with him working consistently probably since about 2010. And I mean, the two main people have been in there pretty much the entire
Mm.
like I said, we've had some come and go, but I mean, they're like family. So it's kind of like you have
Mhm.
your little family feud over your turkey dinner, and then you go about, everybody's fine the next.
Mhm.
So, it's kind of like something like that, I think. Like I said, I think it's just a little different with us because, like I said, I feel like it's
Sure.
just we're all kind of like a little bit more intimate. Like I said, it's just because it's just so few of us in our little
Mhm.
barn.
Yeah,
So
in
it's just,
your
it's an
context.
advantage. Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah,
might be a disadvantage, but yeah, it works for us. So,
for sure.
yeah.
So it sounds like there's a high level of trust. Um, are you at the point in that working relationship where you feel like high trust, and maybe not as much communication is necessary? Um,
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't, yeah, I think definitely the trust. Like, if
mhm,
wasn't that trust between, with what Andy would have for me, and like I said,
mhm,
even the customers would
mhm,
have, the first few years that I started working for him, you know, I mean, I think that first year that I was officially kind of working for him at the Congress, they had RPL Mighty Cheerful. I mean, Henry was with Josh and them at that time. And I mean, that horse doesn't need an introduction. I mean, he's like the king of the halter world at the time he was. And, so
mhm.
that's a little nerve wracking to think that they're like, here, take this one and go bring him to the pen. That for me, it was. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, gosh, these
yeah.
guys really trust me. And I really didn't know them that well. But as we've gotten to where, I've been with them for a good while now. We like, especially at Iowa, we'll get the babies in the pen, and you know, um, we get to where once we've got them in the pen several times, and then the customer gets there, and they work with them a little bit. But for the most part, it's kind of we've gotten this routine down, even between me and the one customer, especially. Where she kind of gets in there and she's like, what are we doing with this one? What's its quirks? Where are we at? Tell me what I need to know. Um,
Mhm,
we've worked on that. Me and the baby and Andy have worked in the pin so much that she knows that we've kind of got to that spot.
mhm,
And I feel like when we first kind of started, they would come and do some work, and then it got to where it was a little less and less. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was
mhm.
more trust on our end, mine and Andy's end, to be
Sure,
like, I'll have it
sure.
ready. They're going to have it for me to get in the pen. It's going to be okay,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I think is tremendous. I mean, I can't that's beyond tremendous for me that they trust me. I know they trust Andy because obviously that's why
Yeah.
their horses are in the barn. But that they trust me as well, like that. And
Mhm,
I think for it being just kind of me and him for the most part, and then adding a few people, especially when we first started, if we didn't have that, I don't think our little team would work like it does.
sure.
And we I like I said, I've been with him enough to where I kind of know what our show is going to look like and what our routine is. And
Mhm,
like there was one year that we would a lot of things that we'll do in the mornings. We'll pull horses out. Kind of everybody does. They pull horses out, look at them, and then we'll go work them. And
mhm,
kind of see where we're at. Did they sleep good? Are the legs looking okay? Do we need to do this? Back off of this? Add this? Um, and the one year we weren't quite doing that, and I was like, are we off? Is something off? Like what do we got going on? And it was a little bit of an off year for us, but
mhm,
and then me and him sat down and we chit chatted about it. I think that's one good thing about that. Him and I are, like I said, we're like brother and sister. We can pretty much talk to each other about anything. And so we'll tell each other kind of what's going on and where we're at, and I think that helps us,
mhm,
because we didn't have that trust level there. I don't think it would work for us being as intimate and as small as our little group is.
mhm.
And it speaks volumes for our customers that they have that much trust and that faith. Like I said,
Yeah,
especially in, I get that they've got that in Andy, that's what he does. But for them to have that in me, I mean, it makes me feel proud that they have that much trust in me. So,
yeah, yeah.
like I said, that's another reason why they're such a great group of people to work for. So,
Hmm.
and I think trust
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
definitely something that if you don't have, it's just not going to work, especially
Yeah,
when things can be that stressful trying to maintain, like I said, that level of success. Um,
yeah.
so
It takes all of you.
yeah, yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
does.
It sounds
It
like
does.
you're a huge part of client satisfaction. Is there anything that you add to the environment at the shows? You mentioned the courtesy stall. Anything else that you're doing uh, to go above and beyond for clients?
Um, I don't know necessarily. I don't know that I'd say it maybe above and beyond, but I think just like just kind of part of what I do and part of what I need to
Hmm.
do,
Hmm.
just to make sure, like I said, just, try to work with the babies as much as we can, especially when they're, this first horse show coming up is the one that kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of sets the standard for the fall.
Yeah.
So to make sure that those babies get out in that pen and they're as prepped as they can be, and they're as ready as they can be. Having the extra little trinkets, for them to have in their pockets when they get there. Making sure that courtesy booth is just kind of set up and things are squared away.
Mhm.
And just, is there anything that they need, any extras that they need? Just that's pretty much what I feel like I'm doing.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what I need to do, but it's part of what I love to do. Um,
Yeah.
over the years, there again, and this kind of goes back to the trust thing. When I first kind of started with Andy, I could kind of get away with it a little bit, but now that I've been doing it long enough and everybody kind of knows who I am, I can't quite get away with it. But like,
Yeah.
even so much as to be on the sidelines and to kind of help, I don't want to say coach, but just to kind of be that person
Mhm.
in case Andy runs back or has, say we have two horses in the pen. He'll be with one customer and I might be with the other. And that sideline coaching, is even something that, I don't know that a lot of people necessarily do, but it's just something that, again, like I said, it's just usually him and I, or, it might be with his dad, or, there might be an extra person or so, but they may be back at the stalls getting the other horses we've got ready to get in the pen, whereas we've got them up in the front and we're making sure the horses are doing what they're supposed to do and they look good for when the judges come around. So I think it's just
Yeah.
maybe those few extra things. Like I said, I don't know. I mean, I feel like between him and I, we try to make it as smooth as we can for the customers, and as best as we can for them, and hopefully we're doing as best as we can, and they're pretty content with what we do, so they'll keep us
Yeah.
around for a little bit yet.
Oh, um, so tell us maybe a favorite memory from working at one of the big shows.
Mm. Honestly, it probably wasn't a couple of years ago. Back in like 23, believe it or not. And it wasn't really necessarily one show. I think it was just kind of the whole fall. And we had, when we were at the Redbud that June, Andy had picked up a mare, um, and we took her to Iowa that year. And beautiful mare, name's Incredilicious, just gorgeous, sweet, pretty, a little different than what had been out there. It just this the sweetest mare in the entire world. I mean, super, super sweet. She didn't care. She'd do whatever you wanted. And she just was a sweetheart to deal with. And we were very fortunate that we won both parts of the show, and she was grand champion both parts of the show
Mm.
that she showed in, which was super great. And then we ended up taking her, and at that time we took Hippies and Cowboys to the
Mhm.
Congress. And
Mhm.
that had been the first time that Hippies and Cowboys had been to the Congress. We hadn't taken him before. And with the intentions that, hopefully we could come home with at least a grand or a reserve with, one or even both of them. And so we went and we showed the mare first, and we knew the class that we had, that we were going to be hopefully okay. It was getting into that grand reserve, and trying to steal that grand champion from a mare that has won it a million times, and a mare that we nobody has any issues coming in behind, and that's a mare that doesn't need any introduction either. It's KR Xfinity that Kelly
Yeah.
and Adam had.
Uh-huh.
So we knew that that was the mare that if we were going to try to get around, that was the one that we were going to try to get around. And we were beyond blessed to get around her that year and be grand over her. Which, then she got us back in the amateur week. She ended up being grand, which was great because, like I said, that's an amazing mare, and Kelly and Adam do an
Yeah.
amazing job with her. And we also won grand with the stud as well. So, and
Mm.
I believe we were reserved with the stud that in the amateur that week as well. So we were able to come home with two grands and two reserve grands with those two horses, which is great. And then we went to the world show, and we took both of them to the world show, and we showed that mare in the 3-year-old mare class, and she won straight across the board, which was amazing. I mean, super,
Mm.
super mare. And then we also won with the stud horse. And we went on to win, I think we went on to win with the stud horse in the open part as well, or the following week. Unfortunately, the mare never got to show again, and that was an unfortunate loss. She never got in the show pen after her amateur win. But that fall was just, it was so much fun. Those two horses they're so easy to get along with. I absolutely love Hippies and Cowboys. He's probably my heart horse. I think he really is. I've had some things kind of going on in my life from the time that we had gotten him in the barn. We'd had him as a baby, as a yearling, and then up through his 2-year-old and his 3-year-old year.
Mhm.
And so he's just a really pretty cool horse. And then to take that mare and go and be so successful with both of them was just an
Mhm.
absolute ride. It was so much fun. So
Mm.
matter of fact, my Congress jacket that I have and my World Show vest is that year from 2023 is literally my favorite year. Those
Mm.
are I treasure those two because that was a
Yeah.
fun year. So that was
Yeah.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. So
How has this work changed you, either personally or professionally?
um it's kind of hard to say because like people so like I tell people I'm confident in my ability when I'm in the hospital as a nurse. And
Mhm.
I'm confident in my ability when I'm doing stuff with horses. But past that, I'm a very quiet, kind of withdrawal and very shy person. I'm not an outgoing person. I'm not very outspoken. So that's kind of hard for people to believe. So, but I think being around all the customers and getting to do
Mhm.
more every year as Andy's had me come on every year, I think has kind of let me kind of open up and get a little bit out of my shell. So I think that's helped me a little bit personally. As far as like professionally or anything, I love to volunteer. I volunteer with our local 4-H club. I absolutely love that. I'm the type of person when I go to the little 4-H shows, every piece of equipment that I have is usually donated out to some poor kid. I absolutely love it. And I'm like, just make sure this gets back to me. And I'm there all week long. And the kids that want their little manes banded, I'm doing that. I absolutely love to do that. I love helping people. I love helping them get to that spot where, they can go out there and enjoy it and just and have a lot of fun doing it.
Mhm.
And not worry about all the other crud because everybody calls me Auntie Toshi at the 4-H club, and my little cousin is in 4-H, and I help them. And so like, oh, it's Auntie Tosh, and here she comes, and and I love
Yeah.
that. I absolutely love
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's just kind of helped me come out of my shell a little
Mm.
bit. If I could
Yeah.
say so. I don't
Yeah.
know. Sometimes Andy will tell me I probably need to be quiet. Sometimes I'm like, just go away,
Too
be quiet.
many white
Yeah,
mochas.
too many white mochas. Lay off the coffee.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Um, so if there's somebody listening and they have a curiosity or an interest in doing what you do, what advice would you give them?
Don't quit. If that's what you
Mm.
want, keep going and ask
Mhm.
questions. I
Mm.
was that kid when I first started going to the Congress, the very first time I went to Congress. I literally just absorbed everything walking down
Mhm.
through the Gilligan aisle and the Gilligan barn, I mean, right down through the aisles. And you peek down there and you see when they've got their curtains open, which 9 times out of 10, we all have our curtains closed nowadays. But, back early on when it was usually just the curtains and we didn't have all the extra fancy stuff, you walk down through there and you see what they've got going on. And as far as like feed and grains and stuff
Mhm.
like that, you're just absorbing all that stuff and you're standing back watching, what they're doing. I
Mhm.
could stand back and watch the arenas where, the trainers were working with the customers and just like literally sit there for hours and just watch them and
Mhm.
interact, just watch them interacting with their customers and just trying to pick up as much
Mhm.
as I could. Um, and if that's what you're something that's passionate about, like I said, I'd known Andy for a long while and had gone and shown and we were stalling with them and then I would help him when we would stall. And so that's kind of how things kind of started with me kind of getting into him, helping him more. And then like I said, then one day I literally had like my boss told me, she's like, you need to take some time off. You don't ever take vacations. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, so here, you need to take 2 weeks. And I was like, all right. So of course it was, like I said, it was in October and I called up Andy and I was like, hey, I got to take 2 weeks off work. Do you need help with the Congress? And he's like, yeah, that's not even a question. So, I mean, and I did it. I just picked up the phone and called.
Yeah.
And so, if they've got somebody that they're looking at or, some local
Mhm.
trainer, even, local volunteer person that just, has a little bit more know-how,
Mhm.
just ask. Even anything, just be like, hey, can I, I started out in one barn literally just sweeping the aisle just so that I could be
Mm.
in the barn. I mean, so that's kind of how I started when I was little. My parents didn't have money for the big fancy high dollar horses. We traded 10 horses for my first halter horse, because that's how much she was worth and we didn't have all that.
Yeah.
And that's just, what I've done. And so, anybody that's in that spot where they think, I could never get there, or
Mm.
it's not something that I could ever do, or you can. I promise you can. If I can be the little, kid from the cornfields of northern Indiana and can have some of the bestest people in the industry call my friends, and call me their friend and family, they
Mhm.
can do it too. They can. Yep.
Yeah.
And
That's
enjoy
awesome.
every moment of it because I tell you, I
Yeah.
do absolutely
Yeah.
enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah.
So
When you think about the skill set that's needed for the behind the scenes work, what are some what makes somebody really, really good at it? Either the skills that you have or skills that you see in other people. What do you think is required if somebody's considering it?
I think if you're wanting to do the more behind the scenes thing and you're not wanting to be
Mhm.
that person that's out front,
Mhm.
um, I don't mean this probably again to sound like it might sound, but you need to not be that type of person that constantly needs those thank yous. Like
Mm.
constantly that,
Yeah.
like that approval, I guess maybe.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if approval is
Sure.
even the word I'm looking for. But I'm fine with like the one year we were at the World Show, we were stalled way back, not in the super barn, but we were in the back other barn.
Mhm.
And I think we were there for probably 2.5, 3 days before we got to that spot because the first horses we were showing were horses that had been in the pen a million times. And we didn't necessarily need to get them up there. I don't even think
Mhm.
we took them too young that year. And so I don't even know that I did anything other than work horses, clean stalls, keep the aisle maintained and keep the our little area maintained and dealt with the customers when they came back. I don't even know that I even went up front, like, for the first
Mm.
2 that I was there. Like, you
Mhm.
and I'm not saying that that's what you absolutely have to have, but I think you've gotta be
Sure.
able to kinda I think to do it and not to feel like, "Oh, but I wanna be out front. I wanna be that person someday," which, if that's what you want, that's great. And like I said, don't get me wrong, I love to every once in a while take a horse and show it. I love that. But
Mhm.
for me, I think, and in order to be good at it, you need to not constantly have that maybe in the back of your mind that,
Mhm. Mhm.
I wanna be that person that's out front being known all the time. I wanna be that person getting all the congratulations and the oohs and the ahs.
Mhm.
And that's not necessarily what I need. So I think if you wanna be successful at kinda being that good person that can be a good assistant to somebody that's super
Mhm.
successful, you need to kind of be able to be okay with kind of being, in the dark, and I don't
Uh-huh.
other for a
Yeah.
lack of better way to say that. Yeah, I mean, not be that person that's up front, you
Mhm.
might not be that person that, goes to the dinner that, the trainers and the customers need to go to because they need to talk stuff, that you got to be okay with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got to be okay with when it's time to be done for the day, you're going to go back to the house and they're going to go out for the evening and you got to be okay with that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that the people in our barn love me a lot, that they'll drag me along anywhere. So I'm that person. They're like, no, 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 you're not going back to the house. You're coming with us. I'm like, really? I could go to bed. I got to get up in the morning. So, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you got to be, I think that's kind of something that you got to be okay with.
Mhm.
And like I said, I truly enjoy what I do. Like I said, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I love every once in a while taking a horse and showing it, but I love being that behind the scenes person. I don't need to be up front like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. Shifting just a little bit to thinking about the show itself. If there's one thing you could change or improve about how a show is run or the show bill is structured, what would it be?
um, like our Iowa deal, I like because I think maybe the only thing, and I think we tried to have a meeting about this a few years ago at the World Show. I think it was like, I don't even know if it was the year of 2020 when they had all of them together for the first time. But,
Mm.
I mean, us halter people, we kind of get in there, we kind of do our thing, and then we could kind of get out of the way. I
Mhm.
mean, the World Show for us, especially, is drug out. We don't, I mean, last year, I think we had 4 days. I think the year before that, we were there for 16 days, and 5 of those days,
Mm.
we didn't have anything showing. And it wasn't that we didn't physically have anything showing, there just literally was no halter horses showing. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's something that, but, they've got a reason for doing whatever they do, whether it's
Mhm.
keeping us all out there so that we can spend money and put it into their economy or what. But, and I'm not gonna lie, it's nice to have a couple of days in between, even if it was a day or so to kind of regroup and then start back up for the next week. But I think that
Mhm.
would be kind of my biggest thing because, like I said, I'm pretty fortunate that I can finagle and move my schedule around that I can be there the entire time. But I know that's a big issue for a lot of people that work,
Sure.
um, to be there and to show. That's a big matter of fact. I have a lot of friends that they're trying to decide whether or not to go to Congress, but the schedule is just not conducive to their working. They're
Mhm.
only going to be able to be there for part of it and not maybe all of it, or they won't be able to go and show everything they want to because they can't because it's so spread out. So, and I don't know. I mean, there's so many people and there's so many classes at those two shows between the World Showing and the
Sure.
Congress. Yeah, I'm sure it would probably be impossible to kind of condense everything down, and it would never make everybody happy. But that would be probably
Yeah.
one of my biggest things. And I think the other thing would be like for me, I know, especially I think if we could, we get the babies and like the horses and the customers in the pen, especially like at the World Show every morning that we can, every time that we can. And sometimes I feel like we always need a little more, but that's probably just
Mhm.
because we just feel like we just need to get a little bit more of. Let's get them out here one more time. And we'll even do that. We'll take them out there multiple times. We'll take them back to the stall and let them chill and then take them back out there. So, I mean, but that's again, it's just where we're at. I mean, they do as good a job as they can. I mean, I love going to the World Show. I was probably my first. I love going to the World Show. I love the Congress, but it's an exhausting show.
Mm.
I don't really know why. I just feel like the Congress is always so exhausting. Um, I think just because everything's so spread out, and I mean buildings maybe wise, I don't know, but in my personal
Yeah.
opinion, this is kind of how I feel. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I think, like I said, and I think we kind of had that talk a couple of years back at the World Show. We all had a big giant meeting one evening and talked about it. And I think they said
Mhm.
they were going to try to fix things, and it didn't, which is fine. It all worked out, like I said. But I think if I could squeeze them a little bit closer, that way I could be there, and everybody that could be there could, and still be able to still pay their bills and afford to go. So,
Right. Right. Yeah,
and I
that's
think
challenging.
it is, and I think that was a big portion of why everybody was kind of saying what they were saying, to miss work and still be able to afford and go. And but I think that'll probably always be an issue that they might resolve, and if not, yeah, we'll make it. We'll work it as best as we can and make it work as best we can. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but
I have some wrap up fun rapid fire questions for you to
okay,
get the last little bits out of you.
okay.
So, what's your favorite other than the iced white mocha? What's your favorite show snack?
I'm a fruit snack person. I'm like a fruit, I love fruit snack. I am the biggest child at heart. Anybody that knows me knows I'm the biggest child. I act like my forever age is like 28, maybe 28
Okay,
to 35.
I like it.
I'm totally like the biggest child. I love fruit snacks. I could live on fruit snacks, white mochas and fruit snacks, turkey
Okay.
roll-ups and Swiss cheese. That's pretty much all I keep in the fridge.
Ah, nice.
Turkey roll-ups, Swiss cheese, and fruit snacks, and then I'm good to go.
Okay, I love it. What's
Yeah.
your go-to song to get you pumped up?
Mm. I don't really know. So, like, Andy and I really don't have like a go-to song. We have a customers aren't in the barn genre of songs,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
we got to be a little more appropriate. Customers are in the barn genre of songs.
Gotcha.
So we have like
Gotcha.
early morning, no customers. We can be a little
Yep.
inappropriate, and we probably should be appropriate. Customers are
Uh-huh.
starting to show up. Group of songs.
So
So
two playlists.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got
And
it.
when
Got it.
we start the one when we get in the truck at the hotel or from the house or wherever. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, we get in the truck and he's like, especially on the mornings that we're showing, and on the morning that we're showing good
Yeah.
horses and we know we're hopefully going to do good. I mean, it's yeah. Yep. So,
That's a good day.
yep.
So what's the worst thing that you would forget when you're headed to a horse show? What's the thing that you don't want to leave home without?
Probably my groom box. I know you can usually
Mm,
get all that crud, but like my
sure.
my arena box has always got extra stuff in it. And
Mhm.
and, and there's some things that you'd have to go looking for. So
Yep.
definitely my arena
Yep.
box. It's always got extra stuff in it that I've done and packed personally. And Andy
Uh-huh.
knows and everybody knows the numbers. The numbers don't nobody touch my numbers.
Mm.
And my groom box. Let me get it prepped and ready to go. And I've got a certain order and a certain way I do things, especially even on the mornings. And we tend to freak people out, especially customers that aren't used to me and Andy. We Especially if it's one that we think we need to let it rest, we'll let it rest, and then we'll get it up. And you got to get up just enough for them to pee, so they're not trying to do that in the class. And then we pull them out and kind of rapid get them ready. And
Mm.
it kind of freaks some people out because they're like, you'll see everybody else out with their horses, and they're like 30 minutes out getting out. And I mean, some of them will do that, but not all the
Sure.
time. And so that kind of freaks people out. So I've got certain things in there that I like, and I'd probably have a come apart if we forgot my box. So.
So in that box, what's the thing you use the most?
Mm. Probably, honestly, the Shoshin or some Shoshin type
Mm,
product, whether we're using the Cowboy
okay.
Magic version, Shoshin, because we're always saturating them with that constantly, always mains the whole 9 yards, especially when we're getting them out, looking at them, customers are looking at them, take them up to the
Hmm.
front. They got to be looking pristine, like we're getting ready to walk them in the pen. Um, my breast spray or my lighter and a comb. Those are probably my most three used things. I keep that in my
Okay.
hand just to get their ears up and then comb to make sure the little mane stays over. Those are my
Hmm.
three go-tos. So,
Okay. All good tips. Thank you for the
yep,
listeners and for myself, right?
yep, yep, yep.
Thank you for your time. I
Not a problem. I've
appreciate
enjoyed this.
the insight. Well, good, good. Ton of insight into um, maybe an area where there's some misconceptions about what it's like
Mhm.
to be not only in your shoes, but to be a part of a barn where there's a lot of success and customers, a lot of horses, and a lot of moving pieces. So thank you for sharing the
Yep,
insight, giving us a peek behind the curtain.
yep. Thank you for having me. Like I said, I've enjoyed this. So,
Good, good. Well, I'll see you at the BHF.
yes, I will see you there with bells on.
Awesome.
So, all right.